Hey guys, Victor here again, coming at you with another retro deck profile for the September 2011 format. And today's focus is going to be on Scraps, which I personally feel is a very underrated deck in this format, as it's more than capable of going toe-to-toe against the top decks. So, with that out of the way, let's jump straight into the deck profile. So, kicking off the monster portion of the deck, we are of course going to be playing this 3 Scrap Beasts. And this card's going to be your main tuner for the deck, and you want to have access to it as soon as possible, because without it, you're not going to be able to access your level 8 synchros, and those are pretty important in this type of deck, because this is basically a level 8 synchro turbo deck. So yeah, you just want to have access to this as soon as possible, and it does have like a secondary effect where, like, if it's sent by a scrap card to the graveyard, you can select one scrap monster in your graveyard except Scrap Beast and then add it to your hand, but that effect doesn't really come up all that often. It's mainly just there to, act as like the tuner for you to actually access your high level synchros. And then after that, we're going to be playing 3 Scrap Chimera. This card's beyond important. It's one of the main reasons why this deck is actually able to function, because of the fact that whenever it's normal summoned, you're able to special summon 1 scrap monster from your graveyard. So you're going to be targeting Scrap Beast every single time, because it's your only other scrap monster. And that's, I guess, a spoiler, because I'm going to be real with you guys, the rest of the scrap lineup at this point in time is just, it's not that great. But these 2 alone are more than enough to actually help make this deck competitive. So yeah, you go Scrap Chimera, get the Beast, and then you go into your level 8 Synchro. Or if you don't have a level 8 Synchro, or like the situation doesn't call for it, you could also just go straight for an Xyz summon, even though like the Xyz pool is limited and you only really have 3 options. Still, just having that option is nice. And then after that, we're going to be playing 3 Reborn Tengu. I feel like Tengu really shines in this deck just because of the fact that it's a Beast Warrior, so it has like a lot of synergy with like the traps that we play. And then much like the scrap cards, if it leaves the field, it floats into another copy of itself. So yeah, the card's just overall really solid. And then next, we're going to be playing 2 Thunder King rai-oh. The monster count is actually pretty low for this, so I opted to go for 2 Thunder King rai-ohs just because it's Thunder King and it stops a good portion of the actual relevant decks. And you can't really go wrong with this. It's just a really solid summon if your hand's like particularly weak. And then next up, we're going to be playing the 2 Maxx because it's Maxx, and the 1 Effect Veiler. Normally, I play 2 Effect Veilers, but there's a lot of traps in this deck that kind of render Effect Veiler obsolete, so it's not really all that needed. But even so, I still opted just to have the 1 just in case, because you never know when like a situation will come up and you're going to have to normal summon this card for like a synchro summon, for example. So yeah, with that, that's the monster lineup, and now we can finally move on to the spell portion of the deck. So to kick off the spell lineup, we're going to be playing 3 Pot of Duality. This deck is more than okay with just waiting a turn before it's actually committing to like a special summon or something, so Pot of Duality helps a lot in helping ensure that you can actually consistently get to key pieces of your deck. And one of those pieces just happens to be triple Scrapyard. And Scrapyard's fantastic because it pretty much just gives you instant access to your Scrap Beast, and by giving you access to your Scrap Beast, you're going to be able to synchro summon a lot more easily if the situation calls for it. And then after that, we're going to be playing 2 Scrap Storms. Honestly, since we have like a really low scrap count, I don't think you need to max out on 3, but having 2 is still really solid because it helps you play around cards like Bottomless Trap Hole or Dimensional Prison, which end up banishing your scrap monsters, which is something that you don't want. You want them to be destroyed pretty much every single time. And Scrapstorm helps you do that because it allows you to send 1 scrap monster from your deck to the grave, draw 1 card, and then you can destroy the selected monster that was, being targeted or attempting to be destroyed by like D-Prisons or the Bottomless. So if you have like a Scrap Beast, for example, you go Scrap Beast, they attack into like a D-Prison, you chain Scrapstorm, you send your Chimera, you destroy the Beast, and then your Beast will in turn also activate to add the Chimera back to your hand for next turn or your next main phase or whatever. So yeah, the card is really good, but in this type of version, since the count is so low, you only really need 2. And then after that, we play the Trinity of Spells, being the 1 Dark Hole, the 1 Heavy Storm, and the 1 Monster Reborn. Not much to say, the cards are good. And then we're also going to be playing 1 Book of Moon, along with 1 Pot of Avarice. I feel like Avarice is actually really good in this deck because you do go through your monsters very quickly, especially a card like Reborn Tengu. So just being able to shuffle back those resources to help you grind for the later game is pretty huge in my opinion, so I really do like Pot of Avarice in this type of deck. And with that, that's the spell lineup, and now we can finally move on to the trap portion of the deck. Now, much to the surprise of most people, this deck is actually pretty trap heavy. So with that, we're going to start off with 3 Horn of the Phantom Beast. This is a fantastic card in this deck because your Scrap Beast, your Scrap Chimera, and your Reborn Tengu all fit the classification for Horn of the Phantom Beast to activate, which is 1 Beast or Beast Warrior monster. And what this does is it gives it 800 attack, and then every time it destroys a monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, you're able to draw 1 card. So it's basically able to turn most of your monsters into like an insta threat, all the while gaining you more and more advantage to out resource your opponent. And yeah, the card's just fantastic. I definitely feel like it's an insta 3 of in this deck. And then after that, we're going to be playing 2 Call of the Haunteds. This card's fantastic because it's able to bring back your Scrap Beasts. So with that, you're going to be able to access your level 8 synchros a lot more easily, or your rank 4s. And then if you synchro summon for, say, a Scrap Dragon, because surprise, surprise, this is a Scrap deck, the Call of the Haunted will stay on the field. So what you can do is you go synchro into the Scrap Dragon, and then Scrap Dragon's effect will be able to destroy the Call of the Haunted plus 1 more card your opponent controls. So it's essentially like a free pop. And yeah, just the little things like that go a long way in helping you win. And then next, we're also going to be playing 2 Fiendish Chains. This card negates 1 face-up monster's effect, and that monster also cannot attack. And this is the main reason why we decided to go with just 1 effect veiler for this deck. And much like Call of the Haunted, it also has the added bonus of if you have a Scrap Dragon on the field, you're able to destroy this plus another card. And then, yeah, you can just go to town on your opponent. Like, cards like these that kind of just stay on the field and float and give you free fodder are huge, because it pretty much just, with Scrap Dragon, it's literally just free, if that makes sense. So yeah, 2 Fiendish Chain, 2 Call of the Haunted, great cards to be able to pop with your Scrap Dragons. And then after that, we're going to be playing 2 Solemn Warning, because it's Solemn Warning along with the 1 Solemn Judgment. Not much to say, pretty much staples. And then for the 1-ofs, we're just playing the 1-of Torrential Tribute, the 1-of Starlight Road, because this is a trap heavy deck, and even though you don't really care about cards like Dark Hole or Torrential, for example, there are times where you would prefer for those cards just to not resolve. So yeah, I definitely feel like you should play at least 1 Starlight Road. And then lastly, we're going to end on Trap Dust Shoot, because it's Trap Dust Shoot, and yeah, it's just a broken card. And that's the main deck. It's 40 cards as always. And now, with that out of the way, we can finally move on to the extra deck. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys. The extra deck as a whole doesn't really matter, because we're not going to a majority of it, but you should still have 15 just in case like a situation pops up where it does, you know, actually matter. And so with that, we're going to start off with the 1 Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. This card is actually pretty funny, because a lot of the time, especially when your opponent doesn't read your cards, all they hear is scrap. They're going to think that you're playing like a machine deck, and they're going to side in Cyber Dragons, right? So Chimera Tech actually allows you to punish them, because they're going to attempt a contact fusion, and then after they realize that the monsters are beasts and beast warriors, they're going to have like a free Cyber Dragon that you can just gobble up and use for your own plays. So yeah, always play at least 1, and then you also never know when you're going to run into like a machine deck or whatever, where you side in your own Cyber Dragons to punish them. And then after that, we play 2 number 39 Utopia. You for sure have to play 1, but the second one is optional if you really want it. You could play like a Steel Swarm Roach or a Zen Meister, whatever you prefer, but I decided to go with 2 Utopias just because I like having the 2500 attack beat stick that it is. And then after that, we can finally get into the synchros, being the 1 of Catastor, pretty much never summoned, but you do have the 1 of Effect Veiler and a bunch of level 4s just in case. Brio, it's Brio, but it's even harder to summon than Catastor, because you really don't have any way to bring this out outside of like a monster reborn on your opponent's like level 2 Plague or something. And the same goes for Orient Dragon, but as I stated earlier, it's just nice to have them in case the option does come up, because there will be a time where it comes up. Then we have the Ancient Fairy Dragon, the Black Rose Dragon, also staples, but pretty much never going to summon it unless you go like normal summon Effect Veiler with a Maxi and a level 4, I guess, but that's a lot of resources to commit just to 1 Black Rose. So and I'm sure there's like a bunch of other cards that you'd much rather use. And then for the level 8s, we're going to start off with just 1 Thought Ruler Archfiend. Not much to say. I like it. If you're playing a deck that targets a lot, this card's great because you're able to negate it. And then we also have the 2 Stardust Dragons. It's Stardust Dragon, It's a staple one of in most decks, and we play Starlight Road, so we play the one for the road, and then the one in case we want to hard make it. Something that I don't play that I think is definitely viable is Colossal Fighter, but there aren't that many warrior decks if I'm being honest, and there's something else in here that you'd much rather make every time for the most part, that being Scrap Dragon, that Colossal Fighter just can't match up to. So Scrap Dragon's like it's insane in this deck because for the first off, it does not care about Solemn Warning or Solemn Judgment. If they hit this card with Solemn Warning or Solemn Judgment, it will trigger and then it will bring back either a Scrap Beast or a Scrap Chimera. So they basically just lost a bunch of life points for no reason, and you just continue getting your resources. And then as mentioned earlier, with like the face-up traps, you're able to destroy them to destroy your opponent's cards. And yeah, this card's just insane, and it's pretty much like the main card that you always want to summon off of your Scrap Beast, Scrap Chimera combo, or just in general. Like, I cannot understate just how impactful Scrap Dragon is in this deck. And yeah, after that, we're just gonna play the one Trish, but it's Trish. We just play the one of because we can. But this is the more important card, without a doubt. You have to play 3 of it, and we don't play the other ones like Atomic Scrap Dragon because they're just not good. You'd rather just go for the good old original level 8 Scrap Dragon to destroy cards and just gain resources. So yeah, with that, that's the scrap deck. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. See ya!